One. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Nerds of Legend.
Apparently,
with our spooky season episode of ghost stories from our childhoods.
Like a morning radio DJ.
That's kind of what I was going for.
So we need late at night. We're gonna have some hard
for our late night. The sleepless hour is close at hand.
Oh, I see. Now the radio DJ just had sex with Vincent Price.
You can call in to talk to Ben, but it costs $3 a minute.
Right?
Yes. So, for us... Anyway, without these two mooks, I'm Ben. Next to me is Brennan. Below me is Joel. Welcome back to Nerds of Legend. We're going to be doing some spooky ghost stories. I thought I'd try and do some ambience, but apparently these guys suck ball sacks. So we're just going to move on, and let's just get into the episode. A couple things. Just so you know, our next book talk is going to be about Escape from Undermountain, by, I can't remember the name of the author, but if you search for that, there's only one, Mark Anthony. So we're going to be doing that. We don't know if we're going to be, it's up in the air on what's going on for this week for D&D, because Will has had his little bundle of joy. Named Juniper. So she's, as far as I believe she's home now, right? Everything all good.
I talked to him yesterday and they were still in the NICU.
Okay.
I don't know if they're home today. I'm trying not to bother them too much and let them settle in. But
yeah. So
they said that the numbers look good and the little girl looked like she was doing well. She just was a big baby and she needed to settle. So that's good. So
we're going to be getting into that, and without further ado, let's get into our episode. Joel, you were the one that came up with this topic of local ghost stories, chores from our childhoods. Would you like to take us off?
I don't have a particular story, but I can come up with one.
Okay.
What got me thinking of this topic is Halloween is a specific time of year where we all, like, as children, it was very serious. Like, we used, like, what is our costume? What is the stories? Like,
how do I optimize my candy intake?
I wasn't allowed. I wasn't allowed to trick-or-treat because I was raised in the middle of the Satanic Panic. So even knowing candy was at around Halloween.
That explains so much.
It really does. And why my daughter and my children have like 3 costumes apiece. What are you doing? We're fucking maximizing. You're making up for my childhood, goddammit. But like, I remember, it remembers the time where everybody had a ghost story. Everybody had like a spooky story. And what was really cool about being raised in the Satanic Panic, my stories didn't have to make sense at all. Satanists were just doing Satanist shit. They're like, what are you doing? Being evil? What for?
Mm-hmm.
Evil! Yeah. Suddenly it's like Mermaid Man's arch nemesis, you know. Evil! So it got me thinking, let's share some of our stories. We've done local lore, but what are the stories we told each other? I'll start out again. And I really feel bad in hindsight for this person. We didn't know his name. We just decided he was the old man with the little blue barn, and it was actually a shed, but it was a barn back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And
you were little, so it looked like a barn.
I would say like 10-ish, give or take. Like old enough to bullshit and be a dick.
Yeah.
But, you know, not old enough to know better.
Yeah.
And there was this old man in Papa Girl that we just mercilessly tormented because somebody, like a friend of a friend of a cousin of a friend, saw him twisting kittens' heads off in a satanic ritual. Like, that's what he did. Like, they said he would bring them home in bagfuls and twist them off. So we just were like, he was the witch, the wizard of, like, you know, like the demon. You
guys are straight out of an 80s movie. It's like, this is Old Man Jenkins all over again. This kid saw that in a movie and he was like, who's the creepy old guy?
They called him the Twist Top.
Right, it wasn't even creepy. It was just a dude. that was in there. We're all like, you worship the devil, or don't go there. Like,
you're an old bachelor living alone, therefore you're a creep.
No, we didn't even know that. We just knew he had a blue shed that looked like a barn, and that's obviously where evil happens. And that story actually, because when I thought about this episode, I was driving in Poplar Grove, and I saw that. I was like, man, I wonder what that old bastard's up to. Like, he's probably dead, but like, man, we were horrible.
Yeah. So what would you guys do? What would you do to this poor guy?
No, it was very well. We just would make sure that he knew that he was a
witch. He was
like, a witch or a warlock or some form of like, I don't know, motivationless devil.
Jeez, was everybody in this town in this cult you were in?
No, it wasn't. I'm telling you, the Satanic Panic was wild. It was a small town where reading is for nerds.
So that's literally why
you should read.
So that's literally why, like, every 80s movie had, like, the old guy that lived down on the corner in the rundown house.
He either A, knew everything because he used to practice dark magic, or B, was the head of some dark magic or satanic cult. Yeah, that was back when Satanism had nothing to do with nothing except for just being evil for no reason. And it's like, what do you, like, the church I went to at the time very much like to go on this, and they would tell me, be like of course gays were also all satanic at this time. Every single one of them was satanic. We know that's not true, and it's not their choice, and they're born that way. So we all understand. However, we're going back to
yes, Joel. We know you're a bigot and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. But back then, like, we had classes where they would be like, people that are gay practice dark magic and murder puppies. Like, that's their entire lifestyle. They have no time for working. Just dark magic and puppy murder and stupid shit like that. Just like evil for evil's sake. And
hate the other.
Yeah, just hate whatever. But it has to be satanic, and that was what was. And that was what was the most important thing. But it had no focus. Like, there was no point. Like, Rock Cut State Park, where you're at. Like, that's where. If you found a deer mutilated because it obviously got hit by a fucking semi because it was,
and then got eaten by coyotes.
Yeah, no. We found a mutilated
devil worship.
Devil worship. Yes. I don't know how many times we had emergency chapel services where they're like, I was on 173 and I saw a mutilated corpse of a deer. Obviously, devil worship. And I was like, why is there a Peterbilt on the side of it? Like, it looks...
why is there a license plate stuck to the side?
Why is there a license plate on it? And they're like, the devil is also a brand whore. He only likes certain semis.
He wears Prada.
He wears Prada and drives a big truck.
So, for me, I think I came from, like, a rural town, even more rural than Joel's places. And we had, for us, abandoned buildings, abandoned farmhouses, abandoned barns.
My God, so great.
Everywhere, So, like, the wild one, which I think this was just probably my buddy riling us up. I was at a buddy's house one time. We were probably 9, 10 or whatever. And like he had like this rundown barn on their property, and we weren't supposed to go in there. And obviously, to little kids, you can't go. You're not supposed to go in there to a little kid. It's obviously not because it's dangerous and is probably going to fall in on itself. It's because it's haunted. So there was one day we were, unsupervised. We went into the barn. Climbed up onto up in the hayloft, and we had all psyched each other up so much. We were like, "Oh, do you feel that?" It's just bright. It's like fucking 3:00 in the afternoon in the summer.
But I remember those adventures.
And you'd go in there, and you're like, "Oh," it's like, "I'm feeling real bad, guys." It's like we'd psyched each other up so much, and I was sitting there, and we're like, it's probably filled with mice, so you hear a noise, and you're like, "Ah." Mm-hmm. It's like, that's obviously the ghost. We freaked each other out so much where we were just like, we went up in there and we like, one of us got sick when we came out, like, because we were so freaked out, and obviously it was ghosts. because it was paranormal activity. It was probably because we were freaked out because the floorboards were creaking and felt like they were about to fall in. So our, lizard brain was like, get out before you die. But
not to mention, nothing grows mildew, molds, and spores faster than old abandoned buildings.
Yeah, that's probably. It's probably you're just high on on fucking mold spores. Just like, oh god, we're gonna die. Yeah. Another one, I had another buddy who's, another thing in rural areas where there's farmhouses and places that have been around for a while, random graveyards. So I had a buddy
really little. They're really little. They're like 5 to 12 headstones, and they're all like from 18 something. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, I had a buddy that he showed us a picture of he had taken over the graveyard, and there was like spirit light orbs over it, and it was probably just fucking fireflies. But back in the day, it was that good old the only cameras we had were those disposable ones, so it looked like there were orbs. It was probably just dust and fireflies, but
flash up the house and things.
yeah. That's the extent of like my. Haunting stuff
were always a big like they're wonderful places to go. And as you're telling the story, like I remember sneaking into the random spaces all over because like when I was a kid, there was 700 people in my town, and so like we had buildings everywhere and like woods and abandoned like houses that were built in the middle of nowhere. Not to mention a train track that went to fucking nowhere, and. So like that excitement of being like, let's go, we're gonna see this. Like everything is an adventure. Like the Goonies was a thing back then. Like you really thought like you could walk outside, like go down like half a mile, take a right, find a cave, and then be like, there's a pirate ship. No, the fuck, there's not. The Goonies is a terrible plotted movie. It's like a D&D adventure, just like laid out. But we all thought that shit was possible. Like we all thought like that was there. So like I've taken the journeys to the abandoned houses, mansions, barns, all of those, and every time it's see who's braver. It was actually just suicide attempts. I realize now as an adult, go over there and break that, burn this, hit that, swing on that rope.
Yeah. We other one that was fun. We had I went to a Benedictine high school. So we were talking they've had monks living on this like abbey and this monastery grounds for probably since the 1800s. This how long this monastery's been there, and we had like that building. We'd go there at night, and holy shit, like it's old building, creaky as fuck. But there was we had a story about among the stage crew people about this guy Brother Otto, who was this monk who had passed away like years and years ago. But if you were up backstage at certain times by yourself, you were destined to hear something, and that happened at least once to me. And it freaks out. It was again. Probably rodents up in the like hidden among all the theater stuff, but that was always a fun one to freak out all the freshmen with it, with all the stories of all these monks that passed away in this building and stuff. But so me and Joel have told you. Do you got any ghost stories for us, Brendan?
Yeah, I'm looking at Brendan right now.
Brendan looks like he's got one.
He was like, I was raised in civilization. The Ghostbusters lived down the street. Never mind. Ours was well maintained.
Most of my childhood was Chicagoland, so it wasn't nearly as remote. Grew up in the Catholic tradition, so a lot of that is based on fear and loathing and that sort of thing. We used to play flashlight tag, and so I grew up. I lived in Chicago until I was about 4. When I was like 5, I moved out to the suburbs, and we had an enclosed housing development. So there were multiple kids who, we knew where everybody lived because we all had to get together in the mornings and get on the school bus. So I knew, hey, like Nick Riker lives over there, and whoever lives over there, and that sort of thing. And so what happened is occasionally we'd get together in the fall and we'd play flashlight tag. So everyone would get their flashlights out, and you'd all start one place, and one person was usually it, and you had to, flash the light on them to get them out, and then we'd all meet in the same place, or we'd play sardines, which is like
you all hide in the spot,
yeah, and we were kids and we were rambunctious, and we knew there were only so many of us, and once you're out, you can't be running around flashing your light anymore, and there were more lights than kids.
Oh.
and everyone would be out, and then there'd still be, and so I mean, I remember us sprinting home. I remember us freaking out. I remember my brother and I climbing up into a tree and like waiting to see if something would go by, kind of thing. We found out later, there were a lot of like bachelors or single adults that lived in these townhomes that would just like screw with the kids.
Yeah, you know that. I was like, there's a story here. I was like, it's gonna be some guy fucking with you.
there was a dude, because when we were in Catholic school, we had to go door to door and like sell raffles, and so the guy like knew us, and he would just walk out with his flashlight and just go back in his house, and we're sitting there sweating.
It's like, stop flashing lights in my windows, you fucks.
Yeah. You guys are running around screaming. It's just so annoying. Early on, when we were trick or treating, we were maybe 7 or 8. By the time we were in high school, we had grown out of it. But when we were really young, we were trick or treating. And one of the houses, occasionally someone's not home. They leave candy out. So instead of a bowl, they left out a bunch of orange and black baggies, like along the wall of the patio. And it's to take one. So my brother and I take one. And we're like, this candy, I think this candy is going bad. And we continue to like pile up candy, and it's like, this candy I think is rotten. Something's not right about this. So we go home and we're partitioning out our candy from our plastic buckets, and like, something's wrong with these. So we get to the bags, like the orange, and I have an orange baggie, my brother's a black baggie. We open them. The dude had collected his dog's excrement for like weeks on end for Halloween, packaged them up like by the dozens, and just was handing this stuff out to all the kids. He didn't even hand it out. The dude just left it out and tricked a bunch of kids into bringing it home. So I remember.
How long was you have to wonder, like, how long is this guy planning this, and what did he have against children and Halloween in particular?
Right, it was industrial. There were dozens of these bags. Like this had been.
Yeah, Mr. Shade's nice. It's like what like this guy had a hatred for a children's holiday so severe that he's like, I'm gonna handle dog shit for weeks.
I remember my mom. She was like, "No apples. Like, make sure the wrappers are closed." I mean, this is the age of kids on milk cartons and everything. So that only added.
Well, yeah, you pick up those like that whole baggie of stuff, and you're like, "Oh man, this is a good haul. This probably got like 8 pieces of candy in here."
And then body heat, you start to warm up. You can start to get a smoke. I remember. I didn't grow up with cable, so on Sunday evenings they had like Masterpiece Theater or whatever. I watched the original 50s cut of Attack of the Body Snatchers. Not the Donald Sutherland one, but the old 50s like anti-communism one, Yeah, where it's like the pod people, they are completely complacent. They don't question authority. It was just this over the head metaphor. But when you're like 6 or 7, I had a bunk bed with my brother and I was on the top. I would lock the door to the bedroom to the point where my mom in the morning was like, "Can you open the door?" And I would lie against the wall in the crease of the mattress as far away from the door as possible. I was just like away from the door because I'm like, dude, that's the one thing. Like nightmares, you can be scared in your dreams, but as you get older, you start to realize that they're dreams and reality is reality. But when I'm unconscious, I can't protect myself. I can't control what happens to me when I'm asleep. Yeah. And that the intersection of understanding that at a very young age and the idea of being replaced or consumed in your sleep was terrifying to me. So I feel like a lot of ghost stories, a lot of efficacy of scary stories in my environment, where we've talked about mythology in the past and civilizations trying to explain things they don't understand. It's the same vein for scary stories, trying to explain phenomena like a flashlight tag. We were terrified for weeks of like, were there spirits playing flashlight tag with us? You know, explanations for stuff.
Well, you were raised by pretty zealous, like religious parents too, weren't you?
Yeah. So yeah, it was Catholic until like 7th, 8th grade, and then
she jumped on the crazy train.
Yeah.
Mine 7th, 8th grade, they decided to jump away from that and go to Lutheran, where they're like, "Do you know how to read?" And they're like, "Yep." They're like, "Let's check this out."
Intersect somewhere in the middle.
Oh yeah, I got the evangelical smack in the middle of the satanic panic, and it was fantastic. Like we used to have chapels where the teacher would be like, "I died last night, went to heaven." I'm like, "No, you didn't. You don't have a lesson plan, and so you're just gonna bullshit. That's what you're doing. Shut the fuck up and make us draw apples again." But I didn't say that because at the time you're like, "Wow, really? Yeah. You must be so close to God," not realizing that they're all fucking horrible. But no, you talk about the invasions of the body snatchers, and that reminds me, my parents had a pond.
Oh yeah.
And my older brother was a bastard. I mean, he's awesome. He's all right, but like at this time, he was a bastard. The neighbor did. So the neighbor and I were like the same age, but he had a brother that was the same age as my brother. Mm. And so they would get together and tell these long, drawn out tales about how as soon as it gets turned fall, like there's the creature in the pond comes out in search of victims, and that's why my twin brother is no longer around because he got caught. And I was like, he's like, "That's why you're so weird, is because you're meant to have a twin." And I was like, "Oh my god, everything makes sense now." But it's because this.
You never questioned, why didn't mom and dad ever tell me about it?
Yeah, they never fucking tell me about it. They're like, "Your sister died too." I was like, "Oh my god, I had another sister. Jesus Christ, my parents need to have gotten cable earlier." Yeah, that was just another torment. Man, kids are mean. The 80s were just kids being mean to each other and old people.
Yeah, since I didn't have a whole lot of stories from my childhood, I decided to look up some old haunted stories from my area of my childhood. I found one I'd forgotten about. There's this pub in LaSalle, Illinois called 9th Street Pub. And there's this old lady that lived adjacent to the pub, and she complained about the noise all the time. I mean, that's what you get for deciding to, like, get a house next to a bar. And I've been to this place, but I mean, I think it's more like this is one of those old pubs that they converted from a house into a bar.
No,
this is before. Those are the best ones. Yeah, those are the best ones. Honestly, I found one recently in Rockford, and it's awesome. They have bumper pool. But there's this old lady that lived next to the pub. She complained about the noise all the time. So after she died, the guy that owned the pub bought her place and turned it into an addition to the pub to like expand. And there was a staff member. So this is a story, but there was a staff member who was much too young to remember this old lady. Got a fright when he met with her ghost at one point. But he walked into the pub area that used to be her house and heard an old woman's voice. So, "What the hell are you doing here?" But no one was visible at the time. So, I mean, it's probably someone messing with them, but I've heard stories about this of like every once in a while you'll hear like, "Get down with that racket" and stuff like that going on at this place, doors slamming and stuff. Because I mean, this owner's asking for it. You know, take over the house of the old lady that used to complain about your bar all the time, and just like turn it into more bar.
In our youth, I think we're more receptive to scary stories because Again, we're more imaginative because we have nothing to do but fill our time with ideas.
And it feels possible.
Yeah,
but it feels possible because the limitations of what's real and what's possible we don't fully understand yet. So, in that gray, that's where the scary stuff comes in.
Yeah.
If you're not in the States, you might have this in Canada, but we grew up with. I know Ben and I had Scholastic Book Club. So they passed around little booklets, and you could use your pocket change, and you could basically order books you could pick up at school, and they had little book fairs, and you could go into the library and buy stuff and bring it home, that sort of thing. And I made the mistake of buying a particular book. This guy. Ooh. I don't know if you got this.
Oh, yeah.
We read all of those. Like that was.
There were like 3 of them.
Talk about them.
There were like 3 of them, and there was a compendium, and I got all 3, and I made the mistake.
They were legit creepy.
Yes, they were. Yeah. The art, and it was especially terrifying.
Yeah,
not for children.
No, well, I mean,
they sold it to children, but it was not for children. It was absolutely terrifying. But yeah, it just takes root ideas from those stories. There's one story about the Talipo, and there's this guy who was hunting in the woods, and he shot at this animal. He thought it was a raccoon, but it was like, ow, my Talipo, and it talked and it ran away. And so he had shot the tail off, and so he took it home and he ate it, and he had like 3 dogs with him. And he went to bed in his cabin. He heard scratching outside, and he let his dogs out. And then in the morning, only 2 came back. And this proceeds. The next evening, it happens again. 1 dog comes back. The last evening, they're scratching at the door. The door opens, and the Talipo says, "I want my Talipo back," and jumps at him and rips his stomach out. And that's just like one story out of like 15 of them, of just like people being ruthlessly gutted and all that stuff. And you're like 8 and 9, and you're like,
and they're short, so you're just you're just inundated by these because you can't stop reading. It's like a car crash, and then all of a sudden you got all these like things in your head. You're like, ah!
Of the scary stories to tell in the dark that got me. It comes in different iterations, but it's essentially like, "Where's my toe?" Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
Or it's like thumb or toe or whichever one, but like this person finds this giant toe and they take it home and they cook it and eat it. You're like, who the fuck would do that? But
what is wrong with you people?
Right. But like there was a number of stories like that. Like you find this random thing and it's connected to some like dead entity or some monster or something like that. And that was a particular fear of mine because I was a junk collector as a child. Anything neat. I had a rock collection. I didn't have a rock collection. I had a box full of weird shaped rocks. But like I had I would collect like little electrical pieces, like all kinds of stuff I would collect and keep and look at them and examine. And then that story would always pop in my head of like, where is my whatever the fuck it is? And like that was the story of all of those. They're like, where is my toe? That one was the one that always freaked me out the most because it found you. Like no matter what it was, it found where you were. It found you. You couldn't hide it. You couldn't get away. It would get in your house. It would get in your room, and it would tell you took my shit, and then I would assume you would die. You know.
Yeah.
And that was more than like the ghost stories of like the Lady in White and all of the other things, like the Phantom Riders and stuff like that. Those weren't as scary to me, but the like things that could come into your house, through your door, through your window, into your house and get whatever you took from them or believed you took from them. Like, so I was like terrified. And because in the middle of nowhere, there's like animal bones and everything. So you find a neat skull. I never touched those. I left that shit right over there because that's not coming in my house. Go ahead.
I was going to say the scariest thing to me as a kid, you have a tendency to overthink and rationalize as a child. And for example,
I do that now.
Yeah. For a good 6 months, my mom would not turn on the radio in the car during the Monica Lewinsky incident. And so I had no idea.
Need to learn about dick sucking.
I had no idea what was going on. And so there's just hubbub at school and kids trying to decipher it on their own. And essentially I arrived at the conclusion that the president was not at fault because all he was doing was oral sex, which was talking about it over a phone. Like, so he was just talking about it. Since he wasn't actually having sex in the White House, he was okay, and that's why nothing happened. And
that's amazing.
it makes total sense. You rationalize it. I mean, I thought that women would stand on a foundation to put on their makeup. I thought the foundation was like a stool.
Oh, damn it, Brendan.
So I was 11, man. So you fill in the cracks, and ideas make perfect sense to you, which would otherwise terrify you. And that's what makes the stories so much more potent. I think the scariest one to me was very simply Hansel and Gretel. I mean, my dad's side was German. We had a bunch of Hansel and Gretel, Hans Christian Andersen, Brothers Grimm, all this stuff, which were created. A large amount of them were created just to keep kids in line.
Yeah, and out of the fucking woods.
And you could tell why. What scared me the most about Hansel and Gretel was the fact that every adult around me, every person in a position of authority was giving me candy, especially around Halloween. So it's like,
so like, how do you rationalize that?
She's a very nice lady. You know, candy. She's gonna eat these kids. It's like you don't know. It really inundated in me. You don't know.
Did they give it to me like, here you go, you skinny little shit?
That's the thing. I've always been like Gumby. I've always been very skinny, and so every adult for 20 odd years.
You're not good eating at all, Brendan.
They're obviously, and Brendan's like, they're obviously trying to fatten me up.
Right. They're
gonna like a Werther's original. It's the only way to get some meat on your bones.
So yeah, every time there was a parent or something, I'm like, I don't know.
Why are you giving me candy?
Yeah, so sometimes it's the simplest stories. They're the most efficient because all you have to do is fill in the cracks yourself.
Yeah,
and they're never make any sense. Like cannibalism was a real problem when I was a child. Like people, like you hear these stories, especially back in the like keep saying the Satanic Panic. People did evil for evil's sake. So like cannibalism was the thing that they like to throw around.
Listen to rock music.
Yeah.
Why do I feel like this is just something that you weirdos were trying to throw shade on Catholics or something?
No, they were satanic too from the church I was at, so don't worry. Everything was. If they didn't go to First Assembly of God, they were Satanists. That's the only kind that were Satanists, and whoever went to the church I went to. That's it.
Did you guys ever get the Jack Chick tracks in your candy?
Where? No, it was a hard no go for any of them. Like the kids were like actually like if they went trick or treating on Halloween, like they had to go to chapel the next day and confess their sins of obvious Satan worship.
You know, as a nerd hangout, we play D&D and try to play on the weekly. You know about Darkest Dungeons. Yeah. So Jack Chick, the guy who made the evangelical paper flip book tracks, there were specific ones for Halloween, and so sometime on occasion I'd have them thrown in with my candy. So
wait. So they would give you Christian literature,
yes,
while giving you Halloween candy.
Yes, in the buckets. So
I wish they would just stick with the bullshit that they say that they give drugs out with their candy, because that would.
I never got razor blades. I never got drugs. I never got kidnapped. All I got,
dude, every year
high fructose corn syrup, vanillin, and anti-Catholic Protestant literature.
My favorite now is with Facebook, because now you don't even have to read. It's like, is the warnings of, don't go, like, be sure to check your candy because people are putting THC weed gummies as candy. And I'm like, they're $90 for 5. No, the fuck they're not. Yeah. Like, nobody got this kind of. I saw one the other day, was like, check your children's Fun Dip. They could be replacing it with cocaine. Where? Who the fuck is doing? Where? I'm going to go to this neighborhood.
Right? I was like,
cocaine was expensive in the 80s.
We joked about that in the aftermath of, like, I was one of those kids that had DARE in grade school.
Yeah, I graduated there 4th grade.
Yeah. That's much good as it did.
It taught me how to buy drugs. I had no idea what I was doing.
Dude, I swear to God,
typically taught me how to buy drugs.
I was promised when I switched from Christian school to public school that I was gonna get. They're gonna force.
Yeah, it's like, where's my free drugs?
Dude,
I never got any free drugs.
They said I was gonna get sex forced on me and drugs. No, I had to search for both of those. Fucking lied. I thought drugs were going to be super easy to get. They were not. Not in the beginning.
Man. And nobody's sharing their stash with a 14-year-old. Come on.
Right.
No way. No way.
Yeah. All right.
We derailed.
We derailed a little bit, but
the thing is like that's what Halloween.
As long as it's funny, it doesn't matter as long as it.
Yeah. I got another haunted place in LaSalle, Illinois. LaSalle had a bunch of them. So there's this one. It's the Kaskaskia Hotel. I've been to this place again. It was opened in 1916, and there's a local story of apparently there was a young woman who committed suicide by jumping from the top floor in the 1920s. Some say that she was pushed by her boyfriend. It is said that employees there would hear the click of her heels in the hallways, and the elevator would work by itself. The hotel was closed in 2001, but it's currently being renovated. But I read a bunch of these different like abandoned hotel or haunted hotel stories. And every single one of them depends on the elevator working by itself. And I feel like when it's an old hotel, I was like, maybe they should just check the wiring of the elevator. It's like maybe that would solve that problem. But who knows?
No, you shut up.
Oh yeah, I guess I'm just dumb.
So, okay, now for an actual ghost story from my area.
There you go.
We did an episode.
We did Bloods. Are you about to talk about Bloods Point Road?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
See, what shocked me is like we had two roads. Ours was, since we were heavily rural, most of our hauntings and our ghost stories were like our big ghost stories. The one that we all agreed on were roads, particularly two. One was McCurry Road, which was again a giant bar that was filled with what? Satanists.
Mm-hmm.
What were they doing? Satanist stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody had any information past that. Just there's a big barn, and apparently the barn had a giant pentagram on it. And I looked for it constantly and never saw the pentagram barn. But
you know what it probably was? Teenagers partying.
Yeah, probably was teenagers partying.
It was rock music and Coors Light.
But I did remember my first girlfriend that I was there. We were driving. We weren't paying attention where we were going, and she's like, we pulled off to fool around, and it was like unnaturally quiet. And then I realized it was McCurry Road, and then in my mind, it was like it got like super cold. And it got super cold, and like you could feel like I thought there was like people touching me, and so like we drove off naked and didn't even finish what we were doing. I was like, it was
know about shrinkage?
Dude, no, honestly, I was like, it's just because it's cold. She's like, it's 97 degrees. I'm like, shut up. So, but no, it was. I do remember that poignantly. Like we were driving, and we stopped, and we saw the barn. It didn't have the marking on it, but we were so like had hyped ourselves up after we realized where we were at that we thought I could feel hands touching me while I was there.
Yeah,
and I was like, that's not your hands, because it feels like a whole bunch of them. And it felt like little hands, which was even creepier.
Yeah.
And so I left there. And then the other road was Bloods Point Road. Bloods Point Road, I was shocked.
It's a fun one.
Is like one of the most haunted places in America.
Yeah.
But the story of Bloods Point that I learned as a child is not the one it's known for.
Uh-huh.
The one it's known for is known for, I believe it was a witch that lived near the Bloods Point Cemetery. And the children on the bridge. That's the stories that it's known for. What I was told was there was a phantom truck on Bloods Point Road.
They're all intermeshed.
Yes, but we didn't hear about the other two. We only heard about the phantom truck, which if you get on it from Genoa Road, if you get on it and head towards Cherry Valley, so that would be east. If you drive on it for more than a minute, you're going to get followed by a pair of headlights. Big headlights. They're going to get right up on you, and they're going to tailgate you the whole way. Sometimes they'll like honk, sometimes they'll do other things. And then when you turn off, nothing is there.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And like and I was like, that doesn't sound that scary. And it did. The first time I was there, it did happen. Like not the truck. It was just something got right up on us and tailgated. And I was too freaked out and too stoned to be like, let's stop and investigate. Because Dean Winchester, I am not. So
one thing,
I kept on fucking going.
One thing, this road, if you're not wanting to take the interstate, it's the fastest way to get out of town.
Yeah.
Like, people just zip down it, because there's only a couple stop signs on it. And we talked about this in our Bloods Point Road episode, but I have a buddy who's friends with somebody whose family lives on Bloods Point Road. And if you look at the point where these ghost stories started about this place, is when this kid was like and his family like first moved there, because they got tired of people like coming and checking out the haunting. Because basically there's a few different things that happen on this road. There's tales of a giant all right, I'm getting off tangent.
There was a train crash.
So there was a train crash. Yes. There's no historical record of a bus full of kids ever getting killed on the road.
30 feet down to the track. So this would have to be like a massive train.
Yeah.
To hit this bus.
So there's this one, and then the road was originally named after, I think it's like William Blood, who was basically an early settler of Rockford. He like built a house on this road. According to urban legend or whatever, I can't remember if this was ever confirmed or not. The dude went crazy and became a family annihilator and killed himself and his whole family, which is like where the haunting started. There's Joel also mentioned there's a mythical witch that was supposedly haunted one of the cemeteries on this road.
And then there's like the one story about like a clown.
I've never heard the clown. That's probably like when they were doing the viral marketing scheme,
or juggalos. Don't forget that.
Yeah. Like, so there's a lot of like stories revolving around this road. But so this guy who's friends with my buddy was like, oh yeah, it's like, we know about it, because he asked him about it one day, and he's like, yeah, we fuck with people all the time, because it's always dumb teenagers parking in front of our house. So they'll fucking sneak up to these dumb teenagers in the graveyard, like from the house, and just like do dumb shit. So like, there's a story about a dog that'll follow you that's huge and satanic, sort of a la Baskervilles. And then there's apparently a bridge where, if you look at it, apparently if you park your car on this bridge, which is, you'll get pushed. Mm-hmm. It's an optical illusion, because it looks like you're parked on a flat plane, but you're actually a slight incline. So eventually your parked car will start rolling. Mm-hmm.
Because you got to do it in neutral.
You got to put your car in. You got to sit on this road, put your car in neutral, and eventually your car will start rolling. And there'll be children's fingerprints on your bumper.
In Boone County, because I'm from Boone County, like Blood Point Road is in Boone County, and like that was like a rite of passage. Like you had to go there and be like, "Did you see it? What'd you see?" And everybody would tell a story bigger than the next. Like, well, it's fun. The next time, fucking Dracula and the Wolfman are fucking riding motorcycles and by you or something.
Well, it's funny because if you look at, I read a news article about this mythical haunted road, and they're like, they asked this family, that there's a family that lived there, about the Phantom truck, and it was like, well, it's funny. It's funny because right around the time where this story of the Phantom truck showed up, we bought a big ass truck. And maybe you don't see it when it turned up, because I turned off to my driveway at the same time.
That's awesome.
It's just like, it's funny how some of these ghost stories, there's like most haunted place in the United States, and it's like, oh, it's just like one family just messing with people who try and like with teenagers hanging out at in remote cemeteries and stuff.
It's because we like the scary stories, like and one of the things that people are most scared of is like what happens to you, like death and all that stuff is scary in and of itself, but like what happens to you after you die? And so like there's a comfort in being scared by ghost stories, which means there's something after you die. So like we like sharing that kind of stuff. We like sharing that the adventure continues, you know, like that it. So
to be afraid is to be alive.
Yeah. And anybody who's not afraid of anything is just kind of, and we are predominantly a safe society. Like as long we don't have to sit there and think of like the things. I mean, not so much now, but it seemed like we were safer then. But
honestly, yeah, because there weren't as many sources of potential fear to inundate us.
Yeah, right. And now we unfortunately have lost that wonder that we were able to have by telling the stories. Because now you can go on social media or the actual, God forbid, one of the 900 news networks and see something horrible happen.
Yeah, and sorry, we talk about stories a lot on this show, and like I think that's like what a lot of it boils down to is. There's a time when, like, telling stories was, like, the point of them was to, you know, like, warn your children, hey, don't go out into the woods at night, you know. Don't accept gifts from random people you don't know. Don't, you know, all kinds of this stuff. And I think that's sort of, like, where a lot of this, like, stems from. So.
Yeah, one of the, sorry, my train of thought just went to shit.
Yeah. Mr. looks at phone. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Crippled with fear.
Yeah. Well, that I do get stuck in the doom scrolling, like, and seeing what's happening and being like, motherfucker.
Yeah.
You know, but I had a thought. I opened up Twitch and saw, like, the chat going. I was like, oh my God, things happen.
Yeah.
There was people talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoy this time of year. I enjoy celebrating it, especially since I wasn't able to. I enjoy being able to do that for my children, you know. And seeing the different change is like they don't tell the ghost stories. They don't tell like nothing satanic. Their ghost stories are like just ghost stories. They're like the ones that you see like on, you know, the Disney Channel or like the kids shows that they tell each other. And I listen to them tell the stories that we used to attribute to demons and devils and all these other random things. And they just tell these like stories like, and now they're at the stage where my 13-year-old and my 10-year-old are both, you know, scary stuff. Have you ever read this book? They started reading scary stories to tell in the dark, you know, and it's neat to see the cycle as it comes back around.
Yeah. Yeah, now it's all creepypastas and, you know, stories of the Smiling Man and Slender Man and stuff like that.
Yeah, if you think about it, urban legends were passed by word of mouth. Slender Man, all of these news stories are passed by IM.
Word of internet.
By DM, by word of internet. It's no different.
Did we ever do a Slender Man episode? Because he's from around here.
More
Wisconsin, I think.
No, he's Illinois.
Is he? I
thought
it was Wisconsin.
Yeah, but the origin was from near where you guys are. I think it's a South Chicago suburb.
What's wild is we're getting these new cryptids, right? And the new cryptids are popping into our and they come up from these memes and these stories. And like my son is obsessed with the back rooms. I don't know if you guys have heard about it, but the back rooms is at any point in time while walking around, you can slip and clip into they actually call it clipping, like we used to for the old games. You put in the cheat codes, you could walk through walls, but you would clip into the back rooms, which is the entryway that you get in there is this old moldy office building. It's like the floors are wet. It's kind of smelly. The lights are the old fluorescents. And that's where you're trapped. And that started a few years ago to now it's evolved to this infinite layered thing with creatures that have too many teeth in their head and smile, and they hunt you down, but the people that are frowning save you, and all these other monsters, and it's these levels upon levels, and they grow as people tell these stories online and the message boards. And I wonder what...
I think that's an SCP.
An SCP?
Yeah.
SCPs are another one, too, yeah.
See, Richard Matheson, back in the late 60s, when he was doing short format stories for like magazines and for TV shows and whatnot, he wrote a story where under the couch of this young couple, they have a baby and a dog, and they're probably like early 30s because it's like the 60s or probably late 20s. The baby's gone and they can't find it anywhere, and they realize that there's a portal to another like
dimension under the couch. Yeah,
it's like clipping with ours, and they can hear the baby in the walls, but they can also hear something chasing the infant, and they don't know what it is. And so they actually
thank you.
They have a bib, and they have the dog sniff it, and they send the family dog under the couch to get the baby, and it retrieves their child, but then it's like the dog is like all jacked up from whatever was under the couch.
Oh fuck.
And yeah, so that idea, I mean, this predates Gary Gygax and the material plane and the astral plane, and it predates D&D and all this stuff.
But that story of like the monsters under the bed and the unnamed secret things, like that goes back to folklore.
Yeah.
Like, like Celtic folklore, you could fall into Tir na Nog and be stuck with you got the Scandinavian Hildefolk, where you can get in there and get stuck with ghosts to wherever the elves live. God forbid there's trolls and dwarves and everything through all of Saxony, and like all of these stories.
It's funny because it's gone from like fairy rings to like internet glitch into like glitches in the Matrix sort of thing.
In the Matrix. What's funny is there was a weird one. Like we had a weirdo neighbor, and they used to tell us that we had to find the face in our trees, and it turned out to be a Celtic folklore thing. Find the face of the trees so that you could show respect to the trees, because at night they flip upside down and they walk around. And if you find the face that are respectful, they won't harm you.
Oh.
And so like she had me at I was 7 digging holes around all my trees to find the face, because the face was always just underground so that I could be nice to the trees. And I was like, man, in telling the story, I realized I was an incredibly gullible child.
Yeah. It sounds like the lady just wanted you to be quiet and dig some holes for a while.
You know what? That track. Like I am now, it's probably super fucking annoying.
You're not alone in that, Joel. Ben, you know the green Lucky Charms story, right?
Yes.
So, like, my brother and I were like 4 or 5, and we were obsessed with Lucky Charms. And so we'd seen the commercials on the cartoons, so we just presumed it to be amazing before even tasting it. So we rip open the bag and we're about to jump in. My dad's like, "Whoa! What are you doing?" We're like, "We're gonna eat Lucky Charms." He's like, "Without the milk?" I'm like, "Yeah, we're just gonna eat it." He's like, "Have you removed the poison marshmallows?" We're like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "You see how the green ones have a skull and crossbones?" We didn't know what a 4-leaf clover was at the time. We didn't presume to inspect Lucky or the box. Like, Dad, why would there be poison marshmallows in the Lucky? He's like, obviously to catch kids who don't pay attention. You think you're gonna stuff food in your mouth without thinking? You see people get sick. You see people die in movies. This is your entryway into watching what you eat. You got to remove the green marshmallows. And so we're like, fine. So we pour out.
Just to make sure you slow down and don't just like
you gotta be careful. Kids, this is a metaphor for life. And we're like, oh my gosh. So we pour out the Lucky Charms onto the kitchen table, and we like mechanically separate the green marshmallows from the rest of the cereal. We do this for about 2 years. I'm going out to the living room to watch Pokemon like on a Saturday morning, and my dad is just sitting there eating the bowl of green marshmallows. So you're not alone, Joel.
It's just odd, like the imagery of you being like, "What? Well, it's only poisonous to kids."
It's like honey. It's like honey. Your stomach wasn't developed yet.
Yeah, you're a little bitch. I'm a man. I can do what I want. Again, we realize that of all of the people in this podcast, is Ben is the only one raised somewhat normal.
Yeah. I like to think so.
Yeah, Ben is the only one without a slew of assholes in his past being like, "Let me tell you this.
Let me just lie to my child."
Right.
Yeah, I mean, if they did, I haven't. If they did when I was growing up, I haven't discovered it yet. But
you haven't fucking crazed out yet.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the end of our sort of ghost stories. I hope everybody enjoyed it. It was a good time. Little trip down some memory lanes there. Some fun little childhood stories. Again, we'll be next week. We'll be covering Escape from Undermountain by
Mark Anthony,
and then if we see you on Thursday, we see you on Thursday again. Our DM has had a baby, so we're gonna be kind of in a holding pattern on the Dungeons and Dragons for a little bit here. I think we told him to take as much time as he needs. If we find out if it's gonna be a while, we'll probably find something to do in the meantime. But with that, thanks everybody for watching, and we'll catch you again either Thursday or next week.